Amen. Good morning, Cross Point. Good morning, kids. You can be released for Children's Church, and thank you so much for not walking out as soon as you walked in and you felt like there was no AC. I appreciate it and believe that God has something for us this morning from His Word. So I'm so thankful that you're here with us. And let me begin by saying Happy Father's Day to all of our dads here. I am so grateful. Like when I think of the men that we have here at the church and the ways that they love and serve their families, like you have been called to be a shepherd in your home. And the way in which you do that is reflecting Jesus, both to your family, to the community here, and to the broader community in the world. And I'm just so incredibly grateful for you and the sacrifices that you make that I know aren't easy. They're not always seen, but they are deeply, deeply valued. And I also realize that today, in the midst of the joy and the celebration, also comes with grief. For many of us, if you're like me, my dad's not here to call and say Happy Father's Day too. And so there can be a heaviness that comes with today. Or maybe you didn't have the best relationship with your dad, and it's something you wish you had, and there's something there that you long for. Or maybe you long for the day when you have that child who says Dada for the first time. I just want to say that you're seen, and I pray that your hearts are comforted this morning. So whether you're coming here with joy in your heart, or you're coming with heaviness, or maybe you're coming with a little bit of both, like, thank you for bringing that here. And I pray that this is a place where you can bring the reality of your heart and allow God to meet you right there. Because today we're continuing in our summer series where we're looking at different Psalms from the book of Psalms. And we're looking at the God who is, the different characteristics of God and the way in which we experience Him in response to different kinds of weariness that we experience as people, right? Like last week, we looked at the kind of weariness that can even come in our own spiritual journey when we want it to be further along than we are and we're not. And what do we do when we wrestle with that kind of weariness? And today we're looking at a different kind of weariness. We're looking at a weariness that comes from within. Like, have you ever had that feeling? And I'm trying to think how to say this. I hope I'm not alone, but I don't wish this on you, if this is fair. That feeling, like when you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, that sense when the pressure's building and maybe there's anger, maybe there's irritation, and you start to feel constricted, and even your skin feels too tight and you just wish that you were free. Like maybe the job, that cubicle that you've been sitting in has started to feel like a cage. Maybe the bank account feels like it's suffocating you because it's never quite large enough to provide for your family the way you want. Maybe your home, which you wish was a place of rest, feels like the walls have become smaller and the floors are now lined with eggshells of the tension and the friction of the relationship with spouse or children. And you feel this sense of constriction. If any of that sounds familiar, or maybe you're here this morning and you're like, yes, right now, I'm feeling that way. I believe Psalm 18 has a truth for you to hear this morning. It speaks to that kind of weariness. Like, I want you to imagine an old man sitting before the heat of a fireplace, right? Journaling, telling his story of the 7 decades that have preceded, looking back on the life and the challenges that he experienced, looking back at the faithfulness. And what would someone like that have to say to us if he came to that moment in his life when all he could utter was the word help? The suffocation was so tight in his chest, the only word that could escape is help. How will God respond to that kind of cry? How will God respond to that kind of person who is broken inside and feeling pressure from the outside? This is exactly what Psalm 18 is. And so if you're able, please stand with me as Tina comes out, and she's going to be reading from Psalm chapter 18, verses 1 through 19.
Psalm 18, 1 through 19. I love you, Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my rock, my shield and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I called to the Lord, who is worthy of praise, and I from my enemies. The ropes of death were wrapped around me, and the torrents of destruction terrified me. The ropes of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. I called to the Lord in my distress, and I cried to my God for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked. The foundations of the mountains trembled. They shook because he burned with anger. The smoke rose from his nostrils, and a consuming fire came from his mouth. Coals were set ablaze by it. He bent the heavens and came down, total darkness beneath his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew, soaring on the wings of the wind. He made darkness his hiding place, dark storm clouds his canopy around him. From the radiance of his presence, his clouds swept onward with hail and blazing coals. The Lord thundered from heaven. The Most High made his voice heard. He shot his arrows and scattered them. He hurled lightning bolts and routed them. The depths of the sea became visible, and the foundations of the world were exposed. At your rebuke, Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils, he reached down from on high and took hold of me. He pulled me out of deep water. He rescued me from my powerful enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but the Lord was my support. He brought me out to a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. This is the word of the Lord.
Amen. You can be seated. Now, there's something interesting that is helpful to know when we come to Psalm 18, just to kind of be aware of when you look at the Bible as a whole. This exact chapter is also found in 2 Samuel chapter 22. If you look there, it's almost identical, except for there's a couple intentional differences. And we see that in the prescript when it's like this was written when King Saul was chasing him. This was earlier in David's life. But the placement of this psalm in 2 Samuel is very intentional. James Montgomery Boyce and Alan P. Ross, in their commentaries, biblical scholars say the placement of this leads scholars to believe this is David looking back on his life. This is a song that maybe he sung when he was younger, but now it's being applied in retrospect. It's being applied as he looks back on 7 decades of life. And he's recalling the ups and downs and what he's going through. And so I want to paint this picture in your mind of this battle-scarred grandfather sitting there in a chair in a living room. He's rolling up his sleeves. The kids can see the scars on his arms from battles fought. The grandkids are there seated on the floor listening to him. Like, what story is he going to tell us tonight? Is he going to tell us about that time when he fought the giant Goliath? Is he going to tell us of one of the many hundreds of battles that he fought? What story will he tell us tonight? And they lean in to listen. And there's a firmness, there's a strength in his voice, but it also comes across with a gentleness, a kind of gentleness that doesn't just come from humility, but from true brokenness. And so they lean in to listen. But I don't think they were expecting the words that come next. If you jump into verse 4, the ropes of death were wrapped around me. Can you imagine the kids? Like a boa constrictor. These thick binding ropes wrapped around me, slowly constricting, squeezing the lungs from my breath. There were these chaotic torrents of waves that reached up, each wave like a finger that was grabbing me and pulling me down to the very depths of the earth. Destruction was sure. I was absolutely terrified. The scene is being painted in our minds. You are bound. You are being pulled down. There are snares that are attached to your feet. You can't run. You can't move. You are completely bound. The air is leaving your lungs. And he was like, and I was terrified. My death, my destruction was there. And this wasn't just a single circumstance. This wasn't just like, hey, that one time. This was again and again and again through David's life. In the younger years, God had called him, had appointed him to be king, but someone else was presently king. He was in God's will, and yet there he was as a young man hiding in caves, sleeping with one eye open because the current king, who was intended to protect him, was trying to kill him. This death was real. It was visceral as a young man, called by God, yet rejected by men running for his life. And then he became king. In God's timing, when he became king, now it wasn't just a man in a single nation coming after him. Now it was nations. It was armies. It was battles being fought. This was real. And the thing that makes that midlife even harder, it wasn't just even the circumstances that were happening outside of him, but his broken integrity of his own mistakes. When kings were supposed to be off at war, he was not. He was gazing at another man's wife, taking her for his own, murdering the husband to cover it up. He is a broken man, an imperfect man. He has his own failures, not just that he has been received, but that he has also brought into the world. And now as an old man, his own son has tried to kill him. His own son was stirring up a civil war, causing David to have to leave the Jerusalem. He's climbing up the Mount of Olives, tears falling down into the dirt, mixing with the dirt on the Mount of Olives as he flees. Such a worse. How much worse must that have been than even when he had to flee from King Saul? When your own flesh and blood are seeking your destruction, the brokenness. These are the ropes. These are the torrents. This is the cry in all stages of life. There are circumstances that will constrict your soul. Like you might be here and if you're a young person, you're trying to make it. You're wrestling with your own story of origin and where you are at this point. You're wrestling with the expectations others have placed on you. You're wrestling with the expectations that you have of yourself. You're trying to make sense of it all. And then as you get older, then you're like, then on top of that, we're going to add bills that just keep coming. We're going to add a marriage that needs maintenance. We're going to add children who don't come with an owner's manual, and each child should come with their own owner's manual because they're all different models. But none of them do, and so you're trying to figure it out, and you feel like if you slip, if you stumble, if you fall, this whole house of cards that you're trying to hold together is just going to collapse. And then you get older, and you look back on life, and you see those moments of devastation. You see those moments of your own failures that if you could, you would do differently. What do you say as an old man sitting there in the chair and Your very soul is being constricted. And all you can whisper is a prayer. All that you can say is help. Like, have you ever been there? When that's like the only thing that you can pray. No other words, nothing else. It's just like, that's all I have. Because I feel like there's not even enough air in my lungs to say anything more. Is help. What will God do in that moment? What will God do when death and destruction are there, when the snares have me, when everything feels like it's at the end? That is where we are at the end of verse 6. That is the very place David is. And I want you to imagine the reality of that there's this emotional pace that this passage is meant to have. Like, if you can picture the grandkids leaning in, like, is this how you got the scars? Is this what happened? What were those the ropes that were binding you? Like, is this what, like, you almost died multiple times? Your soul being confined? What happened? How will God respond in that moment? And the silence breaks. Like, I want you to see the suddenness and the ferocity and the force with which these following verses come. It says that God was so furious at the brokenness, so not at David, not at him, but at what he was going through, so emotionally invested that the picture I have in my mind, like, if someone could create this animated version of this passage, this man being pulled into the depths of, like, the foundation of the earth into darkness, right? God launching himself with such force that the earth rotated and wobbled on its axis. Like those, like, Marvel movies when someone lands on the asphalt and it, like, crumbles under their feet, is God launching himself, not a rescue team, not a messenger, himself launching himself toward their rescue. This is the image that's being done. This is like a lion protecting its cub. This is a father. If you see your child out playing in the yard and a stray dog comes up and it's snarling and it's getting ready to bite, what does that father do? They're going to take off, right? You're going to see grass shoot up from under their feet. They're going to be yelling and screaming and getting that dog away, doing what they have to do. This is the passion with which God is going out. You see the moisture from the hot breath coming from the nostrils in the cool night air. You see the mouth, the roar opening, the tongue like a flame flickering in the back. You see the eyes wide with like a terrifyingly wide because they are ready to pounce. They are tearing through the air to try to gain more momentum. You can almost picture it because God is riding a fierce looking angel. This isn't like a cherub with a bow and arrow. This is multiple wings, eyes everywhere, launched from heaven. That it's the foundation of that has been shaken. He's launched with such force. The air is coming from the nostril. It's roaring. He's pulling the air to try to get there even faster. This light from heaven pierces down into the darkness, and it's almost hidden. It's like the light just crashes into the darkness, and now the light is inside, right? And you begin to hear, before a word is even spoken, that vibration in the chest as a voice is about to sounds like thunder in the sky that shakes the ground beneath your feet. The words are so powerful. They're like lightning that comes crashing down with each word that is spoken. It's like another lightning bolt. And as the lightning comes down, as God speaks, it says the darkness is shattered like glass. You just see it breaking apart. You see it dissipating. And not only has the darkness dissipated, the very waters of the deep are gone. You see the depths of the ocean, the foundation of the earth is there. In God, like a lion, is crouched over David. And he said, I could feel his breath on the back of my neck. I could feel the presence there. This is the image. This is the pace with which this is meant to be felt and understood. And then the question is, you can see the kids leaning in. What did God do? Is that how you got the scars? Did God do that to you? What did he do? And the grandfather leans in close. The kid's eyes are wide, like, what's going to happen? Is this going to be a roar? Is it going to scare us? And he gently reaches out and he picks up the smallest child. And as he's bringing that child gently to his lap, he says, and God reached down from on high and he took hold of me. Do you see the shift there? He grabbed hold of me when I was in the depths, in the waters of chaos. God ferociously approached me, and then he gently took hold of me. He held me up when I thought destruction was sure, when I thought my next breath was going to be my last breath. God met me there, and he held me there. And he took this soul that was constrained, and he picked me up, and he put me into the spacious fields of his grace. Do you feel that there's a contrast here between the ropes and the snare and being constricted to the spacious fields of grace that God is putting us in? Like, have you ever had that moment where, like, I work from home, so there's times like I just don't even like being inside anymore, right? Like my brain just won't function anymore. So I just have to walk around the neighborhood, because you walk outside and all of a sudden, like, the air's fresh and it's like you're able to take a deeper breath. The warmth of the sun, very hot sometimes, hits your face. You feel the coolness of a breeze against your skin. You reach out as far as you can and touch nothing, which is what you need. As far as your eye can see, there's no darkness, there's no adversary, there's no accuser. It is a spacious, open field. And you take that deep breath and you're like, why? Why me? Why this rescue? Why would God come with such ferocity toward us, such gentleness to hold us, such mercy and grace to place us in an open field? Is it because he's obligated to me? Is it because David was such a good person? The murderer, the adulterer? No. Look at what it says. The reason why God did what he did, because he delighted in me. That's what the text says. Because God delighted in me. This is a deep, settled, relational joy in you. It's the emotion of a father looking at their child with love. Like, if you're a dad and tonight and you have young kids, and your child, while they're asleep, begins to cry out. And this isn't like, I want a cup of water kind of cry, like, you know the difference. This is the terrified, they're having a nightmare, and they are crying out, they are scared, they are terrified, and you jump out of bed. Like the covers go flying, you launch yourself in the room, like you're there, and the child is somewhere between dream and reality, and you can tell they're scared, and you go to take hold of them to let them know everything's okay, but then you see the report card on their dresser, right? And you remember they got that C in math. Like, come on. They could have done better than that. So you walk out of the room and you leave them. Okay, you see how absurd that is, right? We see that. We're like, that's a terrible father. No father in their right mind is going to do that. You're going to take that child, you're going to comfort them, you're going to make sure they're awake, you're going to tell them what's true, that they are safe, that everything's going to be okay. But I believe that if we were honest, sometimes we think God is like that bad version of the father. We're crying out for help, but he's going to look at our moral report card, and as he's coming to our aid, says, you're actually not good enough. Deal with it yourself. Like, none of us wants to admit that in church. But has that thought ever crossed your mind? When you're in the depths, and when you're crying out and God doesn't feel near right away, and you don't yet see that he has launched himself and he is coming to your rescue, we assume we're not good enough. This text is saying, because he delighted. God is a better father than any of us will ever be. He is a more gracious father. He is a more merciful father. He is a more loving father. He is a more kind father than what we will ever experience here on earth. He rescued me because he delighted in me. But how does a person, is this just David's story? Like, okay, this is great. Good for David. Wish I was David, right? Like you could leave here with that kind of thought. Like, David had it good. I wish I had that. But I want us to see in this passage, why is this also true for you? How do we get the sovereign God of heaven to look at us with that kind of delight, to take pleasure in us? Because the reality is this rescue is more than just David's story. The way Psalm 19 is written and how it's distinct from 2 Samuel 22, there's some technical aspects in the Hebrew that I'm not going to bore you with, that's in the introduction, that are intentionally changed to make this psalm a congregational song, to make this a song that we can sing. 2 Samuel 22 is David's song. It is recounting him looking back on his life. Psalm 18 is meant to be, this is our song. These are to help put language in our mouths. This is our shared experience. It's a story that can be true because of Jesus Christ. On a dark Friday, one afternoon, on the hilltop of Golgotha, the geometry of Psalm 18 is completely reversed. I want us to see this as we walk through it. Jesus is completely innocent. There is no broken integrity within him. There are no mistakes, no failures like there were in David. He is completely perfect. He is the light of the world, and yet he is driven out into the dark. The cords of death were not loosened from his feet. They entangled him. The torrents of destruction reached up to pull him down and overwhelm him and draw him into the depths of death. The snares that clenched like thorns around his head, teeth of snares that pierced his hands and feet, brought him to death. The crucifixion is the ultimate form of suffocation. It is literally being constricted as you hang there on the cross and your lungs fill with fluid and you're trying to push your body up from the nails in your feet and the raw back with which the whip had pulled the flesh from his back, and he's lifting himself up just so he can get a little bit of air. This is the constriction of the crucifixion. And with his final words, when his lungs were filling, it was not a cry for help. It was not a cry for our rescue, for his rescue. It was a declaration of our rescue. He says, "It is finished." It is finished. And the earth shook, and the sun went dark, and God allowed the suffocating waters of death to swallow him whole. Jesus took the constriction so that we could enjoy the spacious rest. He was rejected so that we might be delighted in. When you place your faith and trust in Jesus Christ, when you say, "I believe that Jesus is the Son of God, I believe that he died on the cross, I believe that he rose from the dead, and I place my faith, I give my whole life to him. My only right standing before a holy God is in Jesus and nothing that I bring." This is the gospel. This is the beauty. If you're here this morning and any inkling of your spirit says, "I love Jesus," like if you're here and you're like, "I love him," doesn't mean we understand everything, but I love him. I want you to understand that that is because Jesus first loved you. David sitting there as an old man, that's in my mind's eye telling the story. It's not because he was a great king. It's not because he slayed giants. He was like, it is only because when my face was in the mud, when the only word I could say is help, God rescued me. He rescued me. And all I can say is thanks. And when he brings us to the spacious place, when our lungs are no longer filled with our own fears and anxiety and sin and that darkness that's pulling us down, and we breathe in the air of grace, what comes out is worship. This is why I skipped verses 1 through 3, and we're going to come back to it. This is what David could say after the reality of being rescued. I want these words. Let them not just be David's words. Let them be your words this morning. As you understand your own story and how God has come to your rescue in Jesus. We can say these words because he has first loved us. I love you, Lord. I love you, my strength. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God, my rock, where I seek refuge. My shield and the horn of my salvation. My stronghold. I call to the Lord. I call to the Lord who is worthy of praise, and I was saved from my enemies. I called to the Lord who is worthy of praise, and he came to my rescue. Because he delighted in me, I pray my heart understands the reality of those words. I pray your heart understands the weight and beauty of those words this morning. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you. Don't even know where to quite begin in thanking you. Lord, there's an intensity with which you come to our rescue that sometimes I oversimplify. An emotional intensity with which you saved us because you delighted in us. I know I have to confess that there's something in my soul that makes that hard to receive. delight versus being owed. That you're not looking at a moral report card. Lord, I pray for those this morning who feel that tension in their souls this morning, that if they were honest with themselves, with others, there are truths in this passage that are hard to receive, hard to believe. Even though they're so beautiful, so good, so glorious. But Lord, by the power of your Spirit, would you let our hearts receive what is true in you? Lord, would you give faith where there is doubt? Would you give hope where there is fear? Lord, those who presently feel like they are buried in the darkness and they've cried out for help and they don't yet see your approach. Lord, would you give them an assurance in their soul that you are coming to their rescue? Would you give them eyes to see how you are moving towards them? We ask all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.